The contract which has been signed means that all the other airports cannot be refurbished, cannot be changed, cannot be repaired until that airport is built and until Adani has finished operating it in the period of 30 years.
So wait, what?
Yes.
So other airports can't be refurbished?
You can't refurbish, you can't change them.
Why?
Adani has been given another contract for them to take Ketrako. Somebody whispered to me that there's a likelihood that Adani might also be given Kengen. And finally, what Adani wants is to take over the port of Mombasa.
We've not had power blackouts the way we've had recently. Tell me why no one has come up with a fix for KPLC.
You can't fix it. You can't fix KPLC. Kenya Power has been set up that it generates revenue for certain individuals who have privately captured it. It is very difficult for you to reduce the price of power in this country. You know we have excess power. You remember these things we've been drilling at, we have got geothermal. They drilled, they found all that, they closed it. If you have excess power, what happens in simple economics? The price will come down. The oil, as I've said before, which was supposed to be leaving Turkana, coming down all the way to Mombasa, some of it was supposed to be processed and then we export it. Some of it we were supposed to sell it as crude oil. Is that the complexity of it is crazy. Tullow, the company which was actually being used and it has an international reputation and they were doing an excellent job, was literally kicked out. The owners of those blocks told these guys to stop it.
You have been very vocal
Yes.
about issues politicians might
Yes.
not be vocal about.
Yes.
Why now?
I've always said these things actually that I say, only that the Kenyan public, I do believe, are skeptical. They are skeptical about the issues you're going to raise.
Hello and warm welcome to today's episode of LNS. My name is Lynn Ngugi, and once again, I love that we continue having these thought-provoking conversations, because if there's one thing that I've said, no one is coming to save us. We have the mandate of making sure that we save ourselves in our own country. Now, I remember a couple of years ago, more than 10 years ago, we all woke up and we realized, you know what, we have oil in Turkana. Boy, oh boy, were we not happy? I mean, we have what in Turkana? But then again, as we continue having these conversations, and I remember, you remember our beautiful show with Mordecai and Baria Wambaria on the big conservation lie, not only did we find out that we also have lots of minerals in our countries, but then why is it that some people do not want us to know how much wealth is here in the country? Again, when Adani came, people thought it was a joke, you know, and then we also have people in government saying, no, let no one lie you, no one is going to sell JKIA, blah, blah, blah. And then also, should we be happy that we get to export labor? Guys, today we have a man that has spoken about everything that is going on in our country. He has been very vocal. You guys, you love him, you love listening to him, and he's one of those people that will sit back and say, we are so glad we have leaders like him. I'm about to let him introduce himself so that he can walk us through a couple of things that are happening in our country, and also what solutions does he think there are to these issues. But before I do that, a girl has to pay a couple of bills here. If you are watching this from diaspora, you know what to do when it comes to sending money to your loved ones back home. Use TapTap. It's very fast, reliable, great rates. And also you use my promo code Lynn. You'll be able to get a bonus on the details showing on your screen right now. Also, thank you so much to you guys for getting us to 1 million, over 1 million subscribers. I don't take you for granted. Thank you so much. And of course, a great thank you to my team that gets to put this work together. I have always said you get to see me in front of the camera, but it takes an entire village to put this work together. And now, without further ado, please allow me to let my guest today introduce himself. Sir, good morning.
Good morning, Lynn.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to apologize. I was supposed to have come I think a month ago,
yes,
and it was inevitable because I was held up. So I hope you'll forgive me.
Kabisa, tulisamehea kabisa.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Senator Richard Onyonka. I come from the county of Kisii. I have been a member of parliament. If I finish this would be my 4th term. I started as a member of parliament a while ago, and I've just been slogging it out. And finally, then I think I felt that I needed to move up a little, because when you do something over and over, it begins to become boring. Then I ran for the Senate and won, and now I'm in the Senate, and I'm very lucky to sit in 3 very important committees. One is called Devolution. The next one is I sit in the Budget Committee. I also then sit in the Public Accounts Committee, where we basically, one committee deals with the giving of the money, and the other one with the auditing of the money. So the 2 of them have really made it possible for me to open up my mind and understand where our country is.
Yes.
Yes.
We are so happy to have you.
Thank you.
And as I said in my introduction, you have been very vocal about issues politicians might not be vocal about. And one question someone asked me to ask you is, why now? Or is it that they miss that you've been doing this for a while, we just caught up with you?
Actually, the answer is kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but let me try. I have gone through, like most human beings would, through a metamorphosis. I have changed in my thinking and my views about several things. 1, because of age, and 2, I think because of the experience. But at the same time, at some point, if you look at all the discussions and the statements I have made, Lynn, for the last close to 6 to 7 years, I've always said these things actually that I say, only that the Kenyan public, I do believe, either by design or by whatever circumstance we are having, people are skeptical. They are skeptical about the issues you're going to raise. They are skeptical about your data. They are skeptical about the things you raise, because we as politicians have behaved so badly in this country that the general feeling with the public is that they've reached a stage where these are the same people anyway. They discuss the same things and they lie about what the issues are. I, for example, will tell you, so many people have actually asked me that question. Initially, they started by asking me, that was before the Gen Zs. Actually, my notoriety started when I was on TV on one of the shows in town, and I said I saw young men and women lining up outside KICC, and the number was close to 7,000 or 8,000, going to line up to get jobs. I think the military had advertised, or somebody had advertised about 400 jobs. So I asked myself, look at the numbers of those young people who are lining out around KICC simply because one of them prays that they'll be able to get a position to work in government. And yet the numbers of those kids, when you look at them, I saw desperation. So I started actually having my conscience begin to make me ask myself, what is really going on in our country? Why are we behaving the way we do? And what is it that has made us as leadership to be so casual? I grew up, luckily, because my father used to be a politician and he was in government, and I saw him constantly having meetings in our home discussing with Professor so-and-so, Dr. so-and-so, and very, very, very highly qualified people discussing about what we do with the youth agenda, what are the issues that we are going to deal with agriculture. The feeling I have is that the leadership that we have right now doesn't actually, excuse me if I use this term, doesn't give a damn what happens. And yet the reality then, as I'm trying to critique and look at the issues that have exposed ourselves to that level, and you're just talking about the youth issue, the youth agenda, I could run through 6 other sectors in our economy. You can run through the health sector. I mean, Lynn, how can we be a country where we are spending billions and billions of shillings, including at the national level and the county level, and yet the level 1, 2, 3, 4 health facilities have no medicines? And that's normal. I mean, why is it that we are taking our education and we are handling it as if it's an exercise by accident? It's like there's nobody who sits down and deliberately says, this is what we have, this is what we've learned from what we have had, this is what we can change and make it better, and this is the result we expect. I started seeing an haphazard, disorganized, mismanaged processes everywhere. If you look at the Ministry of Agriculture, how many times have you seen we are discussing Galana Kuladu? I mean, why is Kenya unable to feed itself? All right. I mean, you have a government program where you are providing subsidies, which I completely disagree with, because that is another line on how money is stolen. Then once you give this money, which is public money, to buy fertilizer, people then take that money. I mean, they then bring this thing called fertilizer, and then you know the story. I don't have to repeat it.
Yes.
Then the people who did it, we handle it casually. All right. And then you can run through everything in this country. And that is why I've just been saying, I think our country is broken. In fact, I don't believe, Lynn, that what Kenya needs today is a political discussion about our politics. I think that's nonsense. What we now need today is a constituent assembly in Bomas of Kenya to discuss, and the government is told why we are not moving at all. Because the whole process of how our system is broken, I believe now, some people will call it state capture. It is a deliberate attempt where systems and structures of governance, including public resources, are deliberately siphoned off, misused, stolen, and misapplied. That is why if you see what the young man Morara is doing, what he's saying is not something I didn't say before. I mean, I've asked many times, how many billions of shillings have we allocated, for example, last year for tamaking of roads? Then I asked, can somebody show me one single kilometer that the government has done with 119 billion shillings, which has been given for the construction of roads? There's none. You can run through everything. I mean, look, I used this example the other day. How is it that when President Kibaki took over his leadership, he found 680 billion shillings. That was the collectible revenue. When he went to his second year is when he hit 700 billion. He ran the country. He paid the police. He paid the military. He paid doctors. He paid lecturers. I mean, Lynn, you know what I'm saying? Yes. Nobody complained that they were not being paid. Guess what happened? That is what one sector is now consuming. The Ministry of Education is allocated 636 billion shillings for one sector of our economy, which was previously running the whole government. Shouldn't that worry Kenyans? Very. Is there anything that has changed? I mean, have we changed the public schools from the status and condition they have been in to the level where they are the Makinis and the Riara? I mean, where the standard goes up.
Actually, they are worse.
They are worse. So the question I've been asking, where is this money going? And my conviction and belief is that because the structure is so broken, and I've been so lucky to sit, as I said, in the budget committee and also in the CPAC committee, which does the audits, it's when I started realizing that actually all the money, including to what Uhuru said previously and other leaders, Ouko said it before in his audits, half of your budget is actually budgeted corruption. The 3.4 trillion shillings budget that we're having is actually half of it is money where individuals sit down, plan on what to do, including the leadership. I'm talking about members of parliament, the Senate. I'm talking about everybody. It is a systematic, deliberate arrangement on kickbacking, on rewarding, on who benefits. Because everybody in government and everybody who's in political leadership in this country believes that the biggest company we have is a country called Kenya. They don't have to, you see all the money they're stealing. They don't want to open factories. They don't want to set up, they don't even want to set up schools, which they could also run, or hospitals for that matter. All that everybody is doing is picking out the money. Some of it you see being caught in Dubai. You've seen ministers being caught with $100 million in bags. And that is the sickness that has percolated in our system. And it is not just at the top. The top has just given the symbolism downwards. Live up there at the top where it is, come down to the National Assembly. Sometimes the judiciary is responsible. Sometimes they play the same game. Roll it down to the county governments. Governors are doing exactly what the national government players are doing. Go down from the governor's office, run it down to the members of the county assembly. When you tell an MCA, gentlemen and ladies, you know our job is to oversight the county government. Please, you are not supposed to go and get money from the governor, because the money that is already in the budget is enough for you to oversight and try and help our people. Nobody will listen to you. Because the purpose why we want to be senators, we want to be MPs, even want to be president, why we want to be in these positions, Lane, is simply because we believe government is the biggest employer, is the biggest business enterprise. That is where the 3.5 trillion is. And that is what everybody wants to take from there. And this is done by a number of less than 10,000 people in this country. That is where we are. So you have 48 million or 50, whatever number we've reached. And yet you have a cabal of about 10 people, middle class and upper class individuals, who deliberately, the job is to siphon out, is to take out the money. You see in Europe, Lynn, what Muzungus do, doing business has never really told anybody, has never been an issue. It has never been something you can't do in government. Only that for us, we killed Chapter 6. Instead of leaving rules which then would control our behavior in relation to what we do with this government, we loosened out Chapter 6. You saw the other day, there was a bill which was supposed to be passed on, I forget what we were calling it. Government should allow, even if you did business within government, there would be no conflict of interest law. We were trying to change that. And why are people trying to bring it to the floor of the House? Because they don't want, after he has stolen 100, 200 billion in a year, as I put a stop there and I've remembered, look at the people who are applying to get jobs in government. Some of them who are ministers, some of them who have been in government. Every individual, the amount of money they displayed 2 years ago when they were being cross-examined, when they were being interviewed, how does somebody make 100 million in a year? And he has no factory, he has no industry, he has nothing. And he actually openly declares it. What magic is that? I mean, some of the money that individuals are displaying in terms of
their net worth
and everything, you would think we are dealing with Safaricom. And yet, even Safaricom cannot give you 24 million or 16 million shillings to go and give in a church. So, do you see the frustration and the disappointment I have? I'm like, what has made Kenyans, particularly the ruling elite, to become the way they have? Then the other issue that I went deeper to look at is, why do we behave the way we do? Look at our culture. From independence, takes 10 years, Mzee Kenyatta gets out. There was still a disagreement between him and Jaramogi. All right. At that time, I am willing to be sympathetic and understand there were those ideological issues between the East and the West. Come down to the Moi issue. And then, of course, I didn't mention Murumbi and the other vice presidents who are there. Then you come to the...
Murumbi got sick.
Yes, then Murumbi got sick, and then Murumbi got out, and then Moi comes in. And then what does Moi do? Moi brings in his teams. But apparently, even with the Moi case, you still had disagreement between whoever that was his vice president. Look at Moi's behavior with Saitoti. Look at Moi's behavior with Kibaki. Look at Moi's behavior with Dr. Njoroge. You look at all these cases and you notice there was always a breakdown every 2 to 3 years. Actually, it was about when we were in the middle of our term, of the 5-year period.
Actually, it's 2 years.
It's 2 years.
It's happening now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Then you leave Moi, then you have Kibaki coming in. During President Kibaki's term, at least Kalonzo managed himself quite well. And I think Kibaki handled him better. All right. And I believe it's because they had a relationship between both of them before that. But guess what? Once you had the coalition government, remember it was during Kibaki's time, the war between Kibaki and Raila started. Then you come into the elections, which were Uhuru's. William didn't wait for more than 2 years before he started campaigning. Then after that, William brought in this narrative that he's been closed out, he's not getting his opportunities, people from his area not getting jobs and everything. Then you now fast forward, get out of Uhuru and President William and come to what is happening between Gachagua and William. And the same narrative is that you can see the trend. And my analysis is very simple. The disagreements, other than the first case during independence period of Mzee Kenyatta and Jaramogi, because they were discussing issues of how do you distribute the natural resources, what are you going to do with the land question, how are you going to handle the people who are displaced from their land in Central Province and certain areas of this republic. That was ideological. The rest, the disagreement have been about public resources sharing. That is why I was shocked when I had my friend, who I really respect quite a bit, Gachagua, saying that this is actually a company and we are shareholders. And there are two shareholders, and the share was UDA, him, and the people who the president was representing, and Gachagua believed he also had a share for Central. And that narrative jolted me, because then it told me this is the dysfunctionality of our country. So first, you look at the infrastructure of the politics. But my argument is, it is more important for us to start looking at the software for our politics and the software, how we manage public resources. Those two are linked. It is the politics that has broken down the system that we have in our republic, whereby the system is dysfunctional, where the most vulnerable are left on their own. When you don't find medicines in a dispensary, you actually end up blaming yourself. And yet, if you look at the amount of money we are spending and budgeting, it is shocking. So these are the things that have jolted me, and I reached a personal level and I said, by the way, what am I doing in the Senate if I cannot discuss these things? After all, the job description of a Senate is to provide oversight. And oversight is about talking about the dysfunctionality of whatever place that you are dealing with where you're oversighting. Now, where I'm oversighting is the national government and the county government, and these are the things I am seeing. And that is why I've always mentioned this, Lynn. Most people I meet who are on the other side pick it up. And sometimes they tell me, so why are you fighting our government and everything? And I tell them, I'm not fighting the government. I just want you to see what some of us are saying. If what we are saying is not true, come and say so. Like yesterday, I had one of my colleagues from Kisi community who was in a radio station, and he said, Onyonka is just lying about the airport. So I asked them, why are these guys demonstrating at the airport?
Actually, there's a go-slow right now.
Yes, if the story is not true, why is it not possible for the government to say, listen, you don't have to give a press conference to the Kenyan public. Come to the Senate and call members of parliament in the transport committee. Sit with us. Tell us what the agreement is saying. And what we are saying, we have got a comparative discussion on what other countries have done. Look at what Rwanda has done. They went and got money from the Qataris.
Yes.
They have been given $2 billion to build a brand new airport. On top of that, because Kagame wants to make sure that Rwanda Air becomes a regional airline, which is strong and which has got enough lines, trips and everything. I told you I have a brother who's a pilot and he's been educating me on these things. And the Qataris gave Rwanda 40 aeroplanes.
Aye.
On top of the $2 billion. And this is a debt which they have stretched to a period of 35 years. The question I'm asking anybody, how can you disagree with a deal like that if it comes out openly? Rwanda has made it public. Why is the Kenyan government refusing to make ours public?
Because we discovered it before they could tell us their narrative, maybe.
Thank you. And I've also been saying, why do people find it comfortable to engage in some of these activities, and yet we have a law? The question is, do we want Kenya to become a successful middle-class up and running country where people believe in the law and in meritocracy, where we believe in fairness and equity? Or do we just want to become another African banana republic, ish-hash, wash, money printing,
hustler.
hustler, whatever?
No, I don't think we want to.
That's not what our country needs to be.
No.
I mean, look at the case of university funding for higher education.
Yes.
How can you tell somebody in a family where people are living, maybe they are 6 or 7 on an acre of land, and the father is a Boda Boda rider, or actually the father is a shamba boy and his total salary on a monthly basis is 8,000. Then you have this child who's born by this family where the parents have done some miraculous things, including selling that acre of land, maybe getting rid of a quarter an acre to make sure this child goes to university. When the child gets an A, you are telling this child he must look for 650,000 to pay so that he can go to medical school. There are no countries that do that except in Africa. In Europe, when an A student is going to study medicine, you provide what he needs and you give them the options which they are comfortable to handle.
Give them scholarships.
Give them scholarships and then tag them along and say, once you graduate after your 6 or 7 years, we will tag you along. You will not even leave the country to go and get a job. We want you to work for the government at least for 5 years so that we cover our money. Then you can continue and do your thing, which still is okay. It's an option you give people. But you can't come and tell me that, oh, we have looked and thought what you need to do, your family, we were looking at the poverty index, we were looking at population in your home, and this information was being brought by the chiefs. I know there are so many good chiefs, but I can tell you there are many of them. If you wanted proper information about somebody, to give that information to the government, where the government is supposed to use that data to make a decision and a calculated decision to make sure that money is shared equitably and fairly to the public, you can't use the chief. Because the information that is going to give you, some of it, the person who's being asked to give information doesn't even know why the chief is asking that information. So they feel like it's the privacy being invaded. And this is why I have said the 633 billion shillings which the Kenyan government allocates onto education is enough, and it should include paying all the lecturers and teachers in the Republic, should provide free primary education with capitation, should provide free secondary education with capitation, and university students should go to university for free unless somebody says, for me, I now have the money, I don't have to either get a loan from you, go to HELB and all those kind of things. Yes.
I love that, but I wanna move on to some few topics. But there's also something that people have asked is why is it that civil servants cannot be made to use public facilities? Why can't they be made to use Kenyatta National Hospital?
Thank you.
But you get the gist?
I get the gist.
There you go.
That is the contradiction that we have about our country, which as I've said before, again, we have African cases. The Rwandese government took it personally. President Kagame decided that he is going to make sure that public schools are going to be public schools for everybody. In Rwanda, there are no private schools except the international schools. I think there are about 3 or 4 which deal with the foreigners. Every child in Rwanda goes to a public school. Whether your father is a PS, whether he's a minister, whether it's a what, you go to the same school. That is how you create equity. All right? Somebody can call it is dictatorial, that system is just messed up. My argument is look at the order that you have in Rwanda and look at the disorder you have in Kenya. Number 2, the capitalistic system is designed in such a manner that all the time, in the functionality of that system, that individuals or whoever that is interested in participating in this system, it's a winner-take-all exercise. The role of government is to provide the safety net when this capitalistic system is getting out of hand. Let me use that term. When we are misbehaving, when we begin to pass laws where we believe that what's most important is for this law to protect me who is capable. And yet in reality, the social welfare system that we should have in our country should be tailor-made in such a manner that it carries the most vulnerable. And yet our most vulnerable, we throw them away. We throw them under the bus. We only need them when the elections are coming.
Yes.
So we plan and scheme how we steal their money. If you are a governor, you steal the money. If you are a senator, if you have a chance to steal with the governor, you do. If you are an MP, you steal from the CDF kitty and everything. If you are in the presidency, you do the deals and everything. When it is 6 months to elections, all you do is provide t-shirts and make sure lessons are given and get a microphone, and all you sing about is how heaven is going to turn around and you're going to do the most wonderful things in the world. That has never been far from the truth. Every single individual, majority of the leadership that exists participate in planning and scheming on how they get public resources in order for them to preserve themselves and make sure that this is the money that they're going to use to get themselves re-elected. Immediately somebody gets re-elected, the next course of action is to make sure that he starts recovering that money. That is why Parliament has broken down. That system in Parliament is geared towards a give and take arrangement where members of Parliament will negotiate with the presidency on what their take is going to be, irrespective of whether what they are going to take is illegal, whether it's going to be unfair, whether it's going to be unjustified.
Just give me my money.
Yes. That is why you notice every time there's a delay in the release of CDF, everybody goes crazy. They want to demonstrate. Have you ever seen any member of parliament walk to a hospital and look at a hospital that has no medicines or people are sleeping on the floor and he wants to make noise about it?
No.
It's none of their business. Or some governors for that matter. I mean, look at the extrapolation of the number of governors that you have and look at what they own and what they started with when some of them did 10 years or some of them did 5 years. You can just tell. And yet the institutions that we have, not that maybe these institutions should jail people, but even to create a deterrence. Even for people to know that ukiiba pesa ya serikali ama pesa wananchi, kuna mtu atakufuatilia. That story doesn't exist. EACC, they show up. What do the individuals do? Whether it's at the county government, the stories are bound where we are told that if the issue that is raising a query is about 50 or 30 million, they know they have to put about 3 or 5 in the briefcase, and that money is picked, and the EACC guys go. If there is anything coming up from DCI, which EACC has given, by the time they are giving the information which is supposed to have somebody get arrested or taken to court, charged, and the matter being sorted out, by that time, most likely, all the evidence has been destroyed, and there's nothing you can do. So the system has deliberately created itself in such a manner that everything that you see that is about leadership, instead of people sitting and thinking about what do you do, can we reintroduce kazi kwa vijana? Can we have kazi mtaani? Those were things which worked. Look at the health sector. Look at Linda Mama. What happened? Very successful, very, very successful mother-child welfare program, which was helping mothers once they deliver kids. They were given a period of 2 years where they go to the clinic, where they receive the medicines, they get the vaccinations. Why would you kill such a system? It's because the money that it was being used for Linda Mama, you will find has been diverted, and it's now going into the lines which are supposed to make sure that people actually become extremely rich.
Hey.
People don't steal 100 million anymore. People are fighting and competing as to who steals 10 billion and above.
Not millions.
No.
We've upgraded.
My watch costs
30 million.
Yes. So how can I steal only 100 million?
My belt is 2 bob. Okay, moving on. But
Yes.
But allow me to ask, why do we seem as a government to hate our inventions so much? Because earlier on I was telling you, tell me why. I'm interviewing the founder of Softer.
Yes.
And he's talking us about the fall of Softer.
Yes.
And you could see the role the government would have played into making sure that we save that.
Succeeds,
that was us, right?
Yes.
Every time we have something ours, it doesn't make it to the end.
It's true.
It doesn't. Why? Is it that we are allergic to supporting our own inventions? Is it that we are allergic to supporting our own people? Because again, he said, we want to export labor, but that labor is working for whose good?
Yes.
Our good or that country's good.
True.
But here you have a man who had created 10,000 jobs.
Yes.
Even right now, tell me, we've not exported 10,000 Kenyans. So why did we let a company that provided employment for so many people go down, and then we start rejoicing that we are able to export labor? Why do we hate our people that much?
That's a question that I think we, as a country, and especially the people who are providing the necessary information and knowledge to young Kenyans, we have a nation where self-interest is more important than public interest. The only time you see anything public interest in Kenya is when the athletes are running and they're winning marathons, or when Omanyala is number 3 or number 4, even when the guy has really, really tried. All we do, the best nationalistic accolade we give him is tell him how he's useless and wasting his time. But the feeling I have is that, and Lynn, I think, for example, at a personal level, that's why you see I'm wearing this kaunda. This is an African design cloth, which has been designed by a local fundi, where I don't spend more than 15,000 to buy this.
Wow.
Now imagine how many of us are in public, and how many, if we stop this nonsense of going to Qatar, of going to Turkey and loading 19 boxes, where you have governors are flying over to New York, and some of them are carrying $1 million to go and buy Calvin Klein and nonsense like that.
Yeah.
When in reality, you have so many Kenyans here. Look at the bags which are being made by some company in Karen. Look at
Joka Joke,
Look
man.
at Joka Joke. Look at the
Joka
designers
Joke
who are doing our things. Look at, I mean, look at, I keep saying this, look at us. What happened to us to an extent that for one to imagine that Softer company, which was a company that was selling soda, which could have employed people, it was more convenient for people to kill Softer, because chances are these other bottling companies that were providing soda were actually rewarding the leadership class, making sure the members of parliament increased taxes, whether it's on VAT, on inputs, and stuff like that. If you go and look at it very skillfully and carefully, you will notice that that is the dysfunctionality that has been created deliberately for certain things not to succeed. I mean, the reality we have now, look at our agriculture. Why is it failing all over the place? The reason is very simple. We are supposed to become the supermarket. We are supposed to be the ones who buy things. We are not supposed to manufacture anything and export that thing. Because when you begin manufacturing, then you are becoming nationalistic. Then you are looking at your industry and sectors. Then you are I mean, Lynn, other countries, look at what Ukraine is doing. They are making their own drones. You want to tell me we can't get a company in Kenya to make drones?
No, actually, let me shock you again.
Yes.
Our coffee.
Yes.
Our sad state
Thank you.
of coffee
Thank
in
you.
this nation.
Yes.
Please tell me why.
I will ask you by answering your question. In Kisii, we have got about 15 tea factories. Why do those tea factories, which produce tea, have close to 12, if not between 8 and 12 brokerage companies which are broking this tea? And yet, this tea is from one area. We could actually have one broker or two, and these brokers would basically be set up by the group of these companies that are running this tea. It's the same thing that you have about our coffee. It's the same thing about what you have. Look at our minerals. Okay, Lynn, I was sitting, making a presentation at the Senate about why we don't have an audit of what our minerals are in the whole of this republic. In my phone, then somebody sent me a presidential brief, which was done by the Americans, actually, and I can pronounce this, when the president went to Washington. And you know what that gentleman told me? And he works for the IMF. He told me, read that brief. Kenya has enough minerals. In this case, the American government is interested for Kenya to supply them with rare minerals. Rare minerals are the minerals which are used to make the special coating that makes sure that when an aeroplane is flying, the temperatures and the weather doesn't change that. And in fact, they are now using rare minerals to create stealth technology so that the aeroplane cannot be detected by radar. We're about number 4 in the world.
No.
Producing that. You know how much the Americans wanted to offer?
No.
100 billion US dollars for them to receive these minerals for the next 2 years. What happened? Now, what these people that I'm talking about don't understand is that I'm now receiving information that the people concerned with departments and ministries of minerals have already flown to Australia to go and look for Muzungus who they want to come and starting minerals. Mining these minerals at Mrima Springs in Taita Taveta. If you go and look at the poverty in Taita Taveta, if they only got the 25% that will come from those minerals, 25% lean of $100 billion would be how much money? It will be 50 billion.
But you know what will happen?
Yes.
A conservation will be set
I
there.
mean, it's 5 billion US dollars.
Yes. A conservation will be set there.
Yes.
Then the people of Turkana will be told,
yes,
there is a resort here,
yes,
that is going to give all your youths jobs.
Yes.
And then they will be made to concentrate on
yes,
the money they'll get from the resort, so they don't ask the questions about the minerals. When we had a conversation here,
yes,
on the Big Conservation Lie, it's
yes,
a very beautiful show.
Yes.
We understood why we have, every time there is
yes,
a conservation somewhere,
yes,
there is something hidden around that area.
Absolutely. And then you find you have now the Chinese have come in, they've gone to Kakamega, they're mining there, they don't consult anybody. They are big boys from Nairobi who are guiding them. You go to Migori, and people of Migori have been mining a place called Uriri, Kuria. All those areas have got our gold, tons of it. But quietly, you just hear, gold was found on the road going to Migori. The story ends there. A government should come up and tell us, this is what we have. These are the companies that are mining these areas. The companies are giving us this much. And that, you remember there was something called Thiomin from Kwale? How much Thiomin has been exported for the last 20 years? How much? And yet those people in Kwale never got anything. So I keep asking, what is this you're doing? Why are we so casual and so determined to take the resources of this country and make sure that they're entrenched in a few hands of these people? And the reality is very simple. If you don't begin to look at the larger picture and how you're going to manage the structural failures and the legal failures and the disappointment that the Kenyan public is having about how we are managing ourselves, it's going to catapult. You don't have to be a religious person or to be evil to see the circumstances and the eventuality of this. Everybody can't be a manamba of a matatu. Everybody can't be a handout receiver. Everybody can't be, they come to my house because their child is not able to go to school and they need 4,000. Why are we reducing our people to that level?
Why are you giving them fish?
Yes.
Teach them how to fish. But the elephant in the room now,
yes,
talking of minerals,
yes,
Turkana,
yes,
oil in Turkana.
Absolutely.
You have been very, not vocal,
yes,
but I listened to you and you have the A to Z of what happened to our oil in Turkana. Because, I think I was a bit young though,
yes,
but when I heard, Turkana, we have oil, like every other person.
True.
This is going to grow our economy.
Yes.
It's a big deal.
It's going to change a lot of things. Our fuel will be cheaper.
But now no one talks about it.
Yeah.
What happened?
Number one, if you got the oil in from Turkana, most likely it would change very many things. My normal observation has been that I then go and look at who owns the oil companies in this republic. Then you begin to ask yourself, look at the way we are handling our pipeline. Every week there's a story about Kenya Pipeline on who is stealing what. We are supposed to have done line number 4 of the pipeline. Nobody knows even how much money was borrowed against that. And if you saw the other day, there were things on social media about how the pipeline is leaking. Turkana, and indeed, I want to say this, Lynn, the Republic of Kenya has resources if they were managed well, including our minerals and our oil. I also believe that around the Lamu area, we have got what? We have got our gas there. All right? LGP gas, we have millions of tons of it. The other issue that we never talk about, except when you're having press conferences about, oh, you see, the Kenyan government is now engaged completely on the blue economy. How do you engage yourself in the blue economy and you're allowing Chinese companies and other companies to go trolling of our fish and all our lobsters and all the other things? And the people of coast never get any money out of that. Why has it that has been allowed? So my observation is that using Turkana as a case, you can extrapolate that and go, I mean, TC, we have one of the most beautiful stones in the world, which everybody thought, I think the next soapstone is available in Canada and Brazil. And yet, with proper mechanization and simple tools, by the way, the people of Kisii could just be making some of these beautiful ornamental items which can be displayed in places and everything. They can make chessboards. And yet, in reality, what do we do? You then allow the county government, which then brings a Chinese individual who's now mining that. And what does it do? He's now exporting it to China. And yet when the president came to Kisii, he announced and said, in fact, I am now making a suggestion and I want the governor to listen to me and everybody who would care that please don't allow these minerals to be taken out. Bring a Chinese company if that's what they want, and make sure you negotiate your agreements properly so that they can come and then generate soapstone when it's utilized well. Once the leftovers are there, then you can convert that into paint, you can convert that into everything. I mean, there's so much you can do with that. That is just one case. All right? You go to Isiolo, you're going to find, Lynn, I don't have the evidence on this, but I'm informed that there's a possibility that we actually even have uranium in this country. I don't know the veracity and the truth on that. So the question we are asking, why is this all in secret?
I mean,
why is it being kept away from the Kenyan public?
I mean,
all right? If it is not true, tell us. And then we who would doubt the data you're giving us, can then you allow us also to get people who can tell us. These days, you don't even have to go and drill down on the soil for you to know what you have on the ground. These days, they just use satellite technology. And they're able to tell you what you have. So the oil, as I've said before, which was supposed to be leaving Turkana, coming down all the way to Mombasa, some of it was supposed to be processed and then we export it. Some of it we were supposed to sell it as crude oil. Is that the complexity of it is crazy. Tullow, the company which was actually being used and it has an international reputation and they were doing an excellent job, was literally kicked out. Why? Because again, what the ruling class did, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, if today you went and found the files where the land in Turkana County is in those files, and you look at the blocks where the oil is, I would want somebody to tell me who owns those blocks. That is how Tullow stopped drilling for that oil, because the guys rushed when Tullow started. Some of them knew Tullow was going to come. They went and somebody was buying like 15,000 acres. Around where the oil is. So that some of that land is actually part and parcel. And how did they buy the land? Nobody gave it to them. They just allocated the land to themselves. So in reality, when Tullow started drilling this oil, these guys just used their lawyers and said, boss, yes, you know, when you start taking that thing out, that land is mine. I have. So you also have to start giving me at least 10% or 20%. I don't know what they were asking for. So by the time the government had allowed Tullow in the agreement on what they are going to make, then the county government, according to the law, I don't know what Turkana negotiated, they should get about 20%. So if you take Tullow taking 50, Turkana taking 20, then the national government was going to take another 25 or 30. So the owners of those blocks told these guys to stop it. And you can now transform the information you have and escalate it to the next level. That is how you find in those areas like in West Pokot and those areas where you have a lot of minerals and a lot of things which need to be discovered for the Kenyan government to make sure that our people benefit. The reality is that is now how, again, the political class introduces cattle rustling in those areas so that they can maintain. Some of them are actually using those areas where there's violence, then they can do the mining. When you people are busy sending askaris to go and fight and village elders and rangers to go and stop the skirmishes and the fights which are going on, that is when some people are actually seriously mining.
So they create an insecurity.
A diversion, an insecurity diversion for them to continue doing the business which they want to do. Let me ask you another question. We have a place called Magadi Soda.
Yeah.
Till today, nobody has ever asked what is the problem with Magadi Soda. What does Magadi Soda? I don't think the issue of Magadi Soda is about soda ash, which presumably is what Magadi Soda is providing. That is not the issue. I believe Magadi Soda, I think, if I'm not wrong again, was bought by a company from India called Tata.
Yes, it was.
These days, 3/4 of, if not, assume if there are 150 or 1,000 people who are working in Magadi, 3/4 of those people are actually from India. How did we allow our natural resources, even when you are negotiating for a contract? And this is why I am scared to death about this Adani thing, because they will have to get their own traffic controllers. They will have to hire the labor that is going to work. You know how most companies from India pay their people. We know the history. You look at the history of Adani. Adani have participated in areas where they try to get their business. They have participated in creating civil disobedience and civil wars in some of the areas in those countries in the Far East because of the business interests which they are fighting. God forbid. That is not what lies behind this transaction is all about. You see, so you have an agreement, you give them 18 years perpetually after they leave after 30 years. You have not told us how much money the Kenya Airports Authority receives on a yearly basis. They have never had a loss. They have paid their workers. Nobody has ever complained. In fact, using the revenue being generated at the airport on its own was enough for the government to negotiate, to pay for the development or the creation or the construction of a new airport. Because the Kenya Airports Authority makes quite, I forgot to pick the number from my brother who knows these things off his fingertips. What am I saying? Then in that agreement, nobody knows. The other day I saw Professor Ngugi write a brilliant article on where this story of Adani came from. And he was saying the contract which has been signed means that all the other airports cannot be refurbished, cannot be changed, cannot be repaired until that airport is built and until Adani has finished operating it in the period of 30 years.
So wait, what?
Yes.
So other airports can't be refurbished?
You can't refurbish, you can't change them.
Why?
Because that's some stupid agreement that somebody went and signed.
But see, I thought they said this whole Adani thing is a lie in the beginning when you guys started talking about it.
That is true, but Lynn, wonderfully, information is power and the truth always sets us free.
Yeah.
Many people, I can tell you this, the Adani story is the most shocking story because it is bigger than Anglo-leasing. It is bigger than Anglo-leasing. It is so overwhelming in terms of even the thought processes and what the implication of those actions. 2017, there was a committee at the National Assembly, which was headed by a guy called Kosing. He's still a member of parliament. They tried, I don't know who was using Kosing. I don't know whether it was just an honest try to see whether you could have a PPP to develop the airport structure in the country. And that committee made recommendations, which I've tabled, and said, this is part of our national security structure. Are you getting me? How do you allow your airport to be managed by foreigners from a country, okay, which is India, assume that something happened and Kenya decided to go to war with anybody because the radar we use is the radar we have at the airport and the one at the military. Now, the question is, what if you allow this company to run your airport and they're the ones who then are going to get the traffic controllers to manage your radar and all the technical expertise? What if in this war, India was for their antagonists against us? What do you do? I mean, that's why I keep saying, shouldn't there be somebody advising the president better? You see, these are the painful experiences I'm having as a legislator. And that is why, Lynn, I was explaining to you, what is my value if I'm not able to question this? What are my children who are above 20, many of them, what are they going to think about me as their father? And I was a senator and I was a member of parliament when literally we got rid of our airport, when literally Adani has been given another contract for them to take Ketrako. Somebody whispered to me that there's a likelihood that Adani might also be given Kengen. And finally, what Adani wants is to take over the port of Mombasa. How does that make somebody feel?
Reject, guys. Reject.
That is my heartbreak.
So Adani amepewa nini na nini tena yetu?
He's interested in Ketrako.
So for the airport,
yes.
Let's clarify.
Yes.
So he's in.
Is what I do not know is that they had been signing agreements. I don't know whether they finished with the final one. My belief is that those people having come to the airport, like you saw last week, something happened. There's something that was trying to give them the legitimacy for them to come there. Then they were chased away by the workers of the airport. And I am so proud of Law Society of Kenya and Madam the Chair. Faith.
Amazing.
Incredible.
She's
incredible.
Amazing.
The court finally listened to the public mood and the Kenyan public. And I really pray that in our courts, we are going to have people of a higher standard. I really pray. Because the reality we have is right now, the courts are our last line of defense. If the court collapses, then many of us, I can say, I have no hope left.
You know what's shocking?
Yes.
You are my senator,
yes.
And you don't know.
I don't
where
know.
we are with this deal.
I don't know. We have been picking information. You see, something that is so wonderful.
Boy.
I told you, there have been Kenyans who are so nationalistic.
Yeah.
So proud. And now they don't fear. Now people don't fear. People are saying, let's fix this thing in good faith. But if you don't want us to fix it in good faith, we are going to break it down and start from zero.
Because shouldn't that information be public? Why is it that data on such issues not public?
It's not public.
Data on conservation not public. Data on this not public. Data on what really affects us as a country is never public.
It's never public.
You were actually telling, you said we keep saying we have 200,000 students.
Where's the data?
Where is the data?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We keep saying we have.
And then you see what is funny, the way this, Lynn, you're taking me to places I didn't want to go.
Let's go.
Then because of the system is broken deliberately the way it is, then even when you know that it is actually not possible for us to continue increasing the number of universities we're going to have, we then come up and say, increase. I mean, Kenya doesn't need more than 8 universities, which should be based on our regional areas, not our tribal areas. Kenya should have 1 university very good in education, 1 good, very good in medicine, 1 very good in law, 1. That is how countries move. That is how countries change.
Very good in art.
Yes. But to see for us, instead of us deliberately making sure that we target our excellence, we have picked it upon, we have taken it upon ourselves where we in a celebratory way, we reward mediocrity. We don't care about the consequences of our stupid actions. All right. And if possible, and you have money and you can actually buy a few of us to keep singing and telling you how you are most probably doing the most wonderful thing. Those things for them don't mean anything.
The way we are joking with our education sector.
Absolutely.
I asked a professor,
Yes.
a historian professor, because I had Dr. Wandia Njoya here. Guys, please watch that episode on CBC.
Yes.
Please watch it. And I asked him, and I wanted to ask him something also on CBC.
Yes.
And I asked him, do you think we did the right thing with CBC? He rubbished it off.
Yes.
And he said CBC was not a Kenyan thing.
No, it's not.
CBC was a systems thing. The way Moi came with his system,
844, yes.
then you have William coming with his system.
Yes.
The way it's our education that we are joking with right now.
Absolutely.
Then another person will come and they will come with their own system. Like the way we are joking with serious things in this country.
Yes.
So Turkana ilienda tu hivyo. Oil imeenda tu sasa. Tujipange. Tujipange ama tukusanye tuende tulime tuone iko wapi.
My honest observation is that and you know these things, by the way, they are not coming out of nowhere. Yes. I remember when the UDA team had won the elections. I remember, in fact, you know, Lynn, Kenyans have a very, very short memory.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we're going to do it to make sure that at least Kenyans' memory, I am praying that their memory can at least last 6 months. You remember how... I remember it was my friend Kimani Chungwa saying that according to him, he wanted a special commission to investigate state capture to make sure we know who's the independent power suppliers. Why our electricity is expensive is because they are companies owned by the past and present political leaders who supply expensive electricity to the grid. That is why you can't reduce your power beyond the price it is. You have guys who are running Kenya Power where it is a cartel that is managed. And I say this, the other day, one of the Kenya Power guys came to disconnect my power. He told me, nikikata, utaenda kuniongeza kwa TV. Nikasema, hapana, we kata, jioni nitalipa. Nimezoea kukatiwa, so I am not asking you to do me a favor. And then he said, lakini mambo naongeanga wewe unasemanga mzuri, unajua hao jamaa wanaiba sana. Who doesn't know that people are stealing? Why do you realize that it's the same cartel and same group that is always being put there as MD, people who have been brought from certain areas, people who are running certain companies? I mean, I could run with Kplc with you forever. I then can bring you to this other silly thing called SHIF, where NHIF didn't have a problem. The truth is, everybody knows that NHIF was overwhelmed because briefcase hospital owners, including many of the owners of these health facilities, had penetrated and accessed the NHIF system where they put the names of their companies, and all that was happening is for people who then do documentation from those briefcase hospitals and some fake ones who are given the okay by the MD and the other people who have all... You check on any MD who has ever served at NHIF, look at the history. It is all about dealing. It is all about stealing the money. The problem was not to collapse NHIF. The problem was to fix the infiltration and the brokenness of that system, which is being abused and utilized. And then all of a sudden, Lynn, what do you have? NHIF is not working, and now there's a company called Trident something, which is all over all the counties in this republic, and yet they are not able to pay. What? When somebody is found sick? Most of the county government employees where this Trident company is.
So who owns that Trident company?
Why don't you go and check?
Hey, I will.
All right. These are the broken things that I could go to the sports fund. Has anybody told you how much money we've collected in the last 2 years or 3 years or 4 years when it started? Where is that money going? At some point, the sports fund was supposed to have something like 8 billion or something like that, because the figures are actually hidden. But we can't even finish one stadium. So where is the money going?
Morara.
Let Morara walk around.
Yes. Brother Kaziko.
He's wacha tembe. Yes. Because some of these people need to start fearing the public.
Yeah.
Because our constitution and our laws, Lynn, were not made so that the politician is protected from the voter. The constitution and the laws we have are supposed to protect the voter against the politician who's abusive, who is retrogressive, who's self-centered, who is capitalistic, who's a kleptomaniac, all these bad things that you get in leadership. That is what the constitution is supposed to protect Kenyans against. What did we do? Kill out chapter 6. Anybody doesn't have to be a graduate. You can in fact steal your exams and have a degree from where? Is this? I saw somebody presenting a degree from Yugoslavia. And then you ask him,
Kuna
can you
ingine
speak,
inakuja
can you
from
speak,
one of the best universities. We are waiting for it.
all right. Then you leave the
Kuna hiyo, we know there is one on the way. We
Yes.
are all waiting for it.
Yes.
From world's top
Are you with me?
university. I'm with you.
You look
I'm
at
with
that, you see how that is dysfunctional. Then you can roll out to another one and another one. It's the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the same.
Yes.
And, you know, could you briefly touch on KPLC? Because last week something happened.
Yes.
And Kenyans were annoyed, as they always are with KPLC. But we've not had power blackouts the way we've had recently. And also, in line with that, we have professors in our country. Tell me why no one has come up with a fix for KPLC.
You can't fix it. You can't fix KPLC.
Why?
It is a system that is captured. It's a system that serves certain interests. It's a system, Lynn, let me ask you, why is it difficult if you use solar? If this office, this complex where you live here, where you work from, if everybody here decided to put solar panels on the roof and generated 36 kVAs, you will only, let's assume you're going to spend 15.
Yes.
Do you know how difficult it is for you to supply that to the grid of Kenya Power? If Kenyans did that, why did we have a law which was brought about 10 years ago and then it was removed from the books, where there was a condition that every house, anybody who's going to have a new plan to build a house, at least they should have some solar energy in that compound? Not for any reason, because it is stupid for us to ignore green energy.
Yes.
And it's the most abundant thing we have. But you see, because Kenya Power has been set up that it generates revenue for certain individuals who have privately captured it, it is very difficult for you to reduce the price of power in this country. You know we have excess power. You remember these things we've been drilling we have got geothermal. They drilled, they found all that, they closed it. If you have excess power, what happens in simple economics? The price will come down.
Where is that geothermal? We go open?
It's there.
We go open.
You go to...
They closed?
Go to Olkaria. Go to Olkaria.
So they found out we have...
You know, nobody visits those areas.
No.
People need to visit and see what is there.
No.
There are companies that have been given rights where most of them have actually drilled and most of them had that geothermal power, and there have been issues. What happened to the wind power from Turkana? Whoever talks about it? Did we stop collecting money from there? Ama, did we pay the loans we got for us to have that power?
So...
It's a whole cabal.
Yeah. So when you say there are individuals who have privately captured it,
yes,
what does that mean?
I'll give you an example. There are about 6 companies. One is called Savo Limited. Another one is called Serengeti. There are companies that are generating power using diesel. And because they signed an agreement which was for 30 years, just like Adani, they have been supplying that expensive power to Kenya Power. They cannot be stopped, because then they go to the International Court of Justice, where they will present the agreement which was signed. You know, courts don't create agreements for you. They interpret what you signed. And then most likely you're going to be asked to pay maybe 1 trillion shillings because of breaking such a contract. So we signed agreements with companies which then were supplying Kenya when Kenya Power was breaking down. And those companies, their period of salvaging us ended, but whoever that signed an agreement for us didn't notice that there was the small lines that once they had supplied that power for that period of time, for them to be withdrawn, then you have to give them a certain premium for them to walk out. So they can't walk out. So I'll give you an arbitrary figure. You are most probably buying from those guys, their power is at 50 cents, for example, to the dollar. And yet in reality, for us to compete within the East and Central Africa region, we have to bring down our power less than $1. So that 50 cents is which is being overloaded onto this. Number two, tell me, Lynn, Kenya Power has been operating for the last how many?
So many decades.
I think it's since independence.
Yes.
Are you trying to tell me that Kenya Power is not able to source for materials to be imported which are meant to make a transformer, so that Kenya Power by now should be having a factory employing up to 800 individuals who are making transformers in this country? Why are we importing transformers from India and Russia and other places, which most of the time fail anyway?
So ni nini imebaki kwa hii nchi yenye ni yetu? What's ours?
That's why I've been saying the country is broken. It has to be fixed. All right, I can run through you the treasury. It is only last month when we were finally told that actually the IFMI system is now domiciled in the treasury and the central bank. IFMIS has never been domiciled near the Kenyan whatever. Private companies and individuals who are holding that. How do you take your financial system, which runs all your state resources, revenue generated, payments made, this is a system which has got your borrowed resources in terms of World Bank loans and IMF loans, and it is a system which is supposed to have for us how much debt we have, and it automatically generates the interest we are paying depending on. How did we allow people to manage that system for 10 years? And then we broke it down where IFMI system was never supposed to be interfered by anybody. But you see a governor who once he does the budget, he allocates the money in that budget, and then naturally you enter the data into the system so that you show Lynn's company is the one which was given to supply medical equipment, and therefore there's a thing they call fast in, fast out. All right, not fast in, last out. So if you supplied and you were in the system, automatically once you've supplied, the invoices are stamped, and then you put it in the system, that money then is supposed to automatically go into your account and you're paid. But under the circumstances, governors can actually reallocate that money and pay whoever they want. So most of the companies being paid are the ones which they own, which are owned by their friends. There is no meritocracy and there is no order. It is the best, the winner takes all. You fight in this system. If you are lucky, you carry the chicken, you carry the eggs, you carry everything, including the chicken house. Ukiendaga.
Well, damn. This is something, but we are learning. We are learning. Yes. Have you ever been threatened? Have you been told, Senator, you are talking too much? Please stop talking.
To be honest with you, no. I have not physically, because I would have stated it. What I have been informed is about how, even if I make the arguments I make and the statements I keep making, most probably I'm a loser. And I said, that is the most honorable naming you can call me, because my reality is this thing is not really even about me. It's no longer about me. It is about who are we? I mean, you want to tell me that there's nothing left that makes you human, that makes you understand? I mean, is it so difficult for me as an elected leader to understand what a person with disability goes through and then try and mitigate their case? Are you getting my point? Without even being religious. Isn't it important that I'm able to look at this country and openly give my view in terms of, and so long as it's not about propaganda or political fights with anybody, I don't have, I mean, I'll tell you, Lynn, I've said this in public. I thought when we were running and I was on the other side on ODM and we had UDA, I constantly have said, I have always felt that President William Ruto I felt he was a clever guy. I felt he would tackle these issues. Not all of them. I felt he would stand up and say, guys, listen, the ship is sinking. So we must do something to fix it, whether it is in piecemeal or slowly as we are moving, so that we can head in the right direction. We are not going in the right direction. Right now, the feeling I have is like we have a bus which has no brakes and is at Kinungi heading to Naivasha. There are bumps.
Lots.
Fly over three of those bumps. We have debts right now. There is a calling of our debt. I think some 860 million US dollars, which we are supposed to pay to the Chinese in the next 3 months.
Who is paying?
Kenyan government.
Not us.
You are a member of that.
We decided until you show us what you used the money for,
yes,
we will not pay.
So that money is expected by the Chinese. If you notice, there's a company that rates countries and rates organizations, business called Moody's. They have downgraded us. You can go to most of these American companies that rate you so that then if you want to borrow money, they use your equity and your standing financially and how you're managing your things. I think we are moving down to C-. We used to be at A-.
No, we would even rather be on Z, so
yes,
no one ever borrows on our name.
Yes.
See, it's for borrowing purposes.
And like somebody has been saying, and I think it's Jimmy Wanjigi, I have incredible respect for him. He has picked the issue of our debt and broken it down very wonderfully. The truth, Lynn, is very simple. We are even going to the public in Kenya here, and we are buying bonds and we are selling bonds and treasuries. And that money is being collected, and we did not discuss it at the National Assembly or the Senate whether we are going to borrow locally. So most of our commercial banks have got government paper. Now the question we ask, this money that we borrowed, where is it? It's not part of the 3.3 trillion which we have collected. All right. And the amount of money we've collected in the last 2 years, and I'm going to check the data, but the last time I heard Jimmy speak, he's saying we borrowed about 2 trillion shillings. Where is it? Which means our debt, which was at 9.8 after the shilling stabilized, is most probably in the next 1 year, our debt is going to hit 14 trillion.
Because now...
And if you hit 14 trillion, nobody is then going to allow you to borrow any money. And the next thing they will do, therefore, we will print money.
By this, ingine naona to print tu na si kwa ubaya. I know it has its own downfall, but naona to print tu.
After tukisha print, then the prices of everything will go in and you wait for another 10 years to clean
of course, I know kuna disadvantages, but to print yeni, tujenge industries uko kwa coffee, uko kwa pixie, uko kwa tea. You get what I'm saying? Kama hiyo pesa imekosekana, print enough for us to have few industries near our resources. You know, I said, I did, and I keep, this story pained me. Yes. I did a show on Pixie Oranges in, where was it? Makueni.
Yes.
So, can you imagine that whole area has beautiful fruits?
Yes.
But almost zote zowoza.
Yes.
Because there is no factory
around there.
There
is no market
to give us an end product.
Absolutely.
You see, the fact that even as we were saying, our coffee has to live here.
Yes.
We also did that show.
And taken away.
And then as we need to buy, what are we doing? Hata wakiuza inchi, watubakishie tu tule tudogo, tunaeza fanya. You know what I'm saying? The small that we can do. And the issue of banks also.
Yes.
Is a conversation we need to have separately.
True.
Our banks are failing us. Our banks are lending the government. They are getting huge interest from the government.
Yes.
By the way, our banks are just okay doing business with the government.
But these banks are again owned by your political class.
Hey.
They are owned by your political class.
Tufungueni wananchi bank.
Absolutely. You see, my point is very simple. Civil disobedience is a tenet in our constitution that we must hold dearly. Why? Because this is the only way we are going to start telling each other the truth. And at some point, all these people making noise about how our countries become dysfunctional and everything, I liked what the Gen Zs were doing. Let us at some point begin to realize that we can actually target certain companies and certain individuals who are refusing to listen to the demands that the public is making. So that if we find there's a company that doesn't listen to what the demands that the public is making, walk away from it. If it's a bank, you know it's dealing in these fake things. Walk away from it. Let's organize and create our own Mwananchi. In America, you have a company, you have many banks which are made for poor people. There's no contradiction in that because their lending terms are easier. Their engagement with the vulnerable, even in their corporate social responsibility issues, they are actually more kinder. The way they handle people. And my argument is, if we notice that people in government and individuals who are running government departments are not willing to listen to the public, then we must escalate this thing to the next level and tell the government that, you see, we will conduct civil disobedience and we're going to do it whichever way we want. You can't twist people anymore in this country. People are suffering. If you go to estates, you go to the neighborhoods. All right. And I mean, it brings me back, Lynn, it brings me back to the point I was telling a friend of mine, how I wished the president would talk to somebody like I have a friend of mine, I won't mention his name, who said, Richard, I don't understand what the government is doing. Look at all our universities. They have no hostels. Why didn't the president start building hostels in those schools first? Which, anyway, these kids are being charged. So you'll recover the money.
Have you seen how much those hostels around universities earn?
Tell me.
I won't mention the name so they don't appear in bad light, because I think what they did is great. They saw a need and they fulfilled it.
But you can provide new hostels which are for children who are, young men and women who are vulnerable going to university who may not afford to pay 15,000 in a semester.
But they will charge you 15,000 and the hostels look like...
My argument is that is the that we have created for our children. We take our girl child and create a higher standard for her and assume that she's supposed to be an angel. We take our boy child, expect that he's not going to engage in drinking alcohol and other things which are socially stated. And yet, where have we taken these kids? We have lifted our children from a university class and taken to the slum, and you're putting them in a place where they pay 1,000 shillings. What do you expect those kids to become?
Has any of your reports, anything you've tabled in Senate, any recommendation you've made, has any of it been taken? Has it ever been taken seriously?
This morning, I pray and hope that the minister, in fact, I need to be at the Senate by 10. I hope the CS is coming to discuss and answer questions on the Adani question. He has refused to come 3 times, but last week, to be fair to him, he was in China with the president. I believe they have come back. I hope he'll come this morning. And the question that I've asked, I expect full disclosure. I expect him to table the agreement. I expect him to tell us whether the agreement has been signed and the airport has been given out, whether every single item we've been raising about the Adani deal is true or not. And if he comes and thinks he's going to play around with us, people are upset. And by the way, Lynn, I want to tell you something. The Gen Zs have created a very interesting paradigm in our political thinking. Many of my colleagues who are conformist, who felt that our responsibility at the Senate was basically to be able to do 1 or 2, get a few favors from national government, allow the governor, if he's your friend, to bail you out with a few jobs here and there of doing roads and those things and all that stuff. Right now, people are changing. The Kajwangs are changing. Even Sufuna is changing. Even me are changing. You have Karungo is changing. You have... people are beginning to say, you guys, we can do this better. And it's not personal.
Good.
We can do it better. We can manage our country better. We can be more kinder to our vulnerable society.
Because these are the people we serve.
These are the people we serve. And we have laughed at these people
for so long.
At some point, if you laugh at somebody, at some point you spit on your face. That time he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I know you are supposed to be in so I'm gonna let you go.
Yes.
But I hope you can come back. There are so many things I would love to talk about. Honestly, we are at a very disadvantaged position as a country.
Yes.
Our multinationals get loans from their place at 2%,
Absolutely.
3%, or even 1.5%.
Yes.
Getting loans
Yes.
in this country
Yes.
alone, credit for our people to be able to start their businesses is a nightmare. And we cannot continue competing. We are at a very disadvantaged position. Then
it's true. My maybe final parting shot is this. This country has everything it takes to move from where we are to the next level. But my conviction is that it needs people who are sincere and honest, who are not going to play the games that we've been playing on our people for the last 30, 40 years. My honest feeling is that anybody in this republic who thinks that because they have removed their children from some school where he was paying 100,000 and now they are in St. Andrew's Story and the children are used to riding horses and all that is okay. I have no problem for you to do that. So long as you are doing business, which is genuine, so long as you're running factories or companies, so long as you're not using my public money and other people's money to make sure that your family is advantaged and is in a place whereby you continue to propel yourself upwards when you're stepping on the other people who are unable.
Yes.
Our people, another thing I was going to ask you, Lynn, look at university students who are, other than the ones I think at Jomo Kenyatta, those kids fall sick. They can't get anywhere to be treated. You see, these are the things. There are certain low-lying fruits that a serious government can fix. It's so possible. Why? Because Kenyans, we've been a model for 50 years. Unless we upgrade where we are, Rwanda is taking over. Look at how small that country is. 20% of the economy is what Kenya's economy is. 20%. All right? Look at Ethiopia. They are running as if they can't wait.
You see the airport. Man, I was in Ethiopia.
Yes.
The airport.
Yes.
This is...
Look at what that guy has done with the hydroelectric power. All right? Look at what Suluhu is doing in Tanzania. I mean, how can a Tanzanian president think that it makes sense for her to provide an electric line from Dodoma, from Tanga, and is coming all the way to Burundi and into Uganda and into Rwanda? And she has done 70% of it. And it has been done at a quarter, equivalent of 29 billion Kenya shillings. How did our railway line, which is basically not electric, how did it end up costing us? Now, the figure is moving up to 1 trillion shillings.
Senator, it's okay.
Are you with me? Why is Nairobi county government not having a tram? I mean, which engineer do you want to go? Kenyans are the ones, some of them, who have worked in Dubai, designing those trams that you see those guys have done in Dubai. You want to tell me we can't do a tram that runs from Karen and runs all the way to Thika Road, or Thika itself, the one that runs from the airport and goes up to Limuru? And then I hear people talking about, no, it is going to disenfranchise the matatu industry, to employ a lot of people. Get those owners of those matatus to be shareholders in this tram. They're already in the business anyway. And that doesn't mean that you're going to leave the vehicles not to function. No, just bring the price down because you are handling an economy that is not able to sustain itself. Lynn, every single evening, I live in Kplc, every single evening, drive from town on Ngong Road and all these other areas around, drive around Riara area there, and you see how many people are walking from industrial area to Kawangware. And that is so normal to us. Because why? We drive. We put AC in our cars. Even if it's raining, you don't care who's out here. It doesn't have. Do they need to have a car? If they didn't have a car, most probably blame their parents.
You will be escorted by 10 cars and pass on the wrong side.
Absolutely.
Because, get out of there.
Yes.
By the way, may I say, if one happens, I'm
Yes.
blocking you. Moving on.
Yes, that is.
Moving on.
My feeling is you don't have to have 3 cars to
run.
To run. Those are the idiosyncrasies of
Yes.
our broken down system.
But you know what I'm loving?
Yes.
That these conversations have started.
Yes.
I've always said we can never go wrong with conversations.
Thank you.
We can never, ever
And
go
thank you
wrong.
for the excellent work you've been doing.
Oh,
I have been wanting to come here. Call me again. I'm available.
Yes.
Call me again. I'll always come and then we continue with it.
We are all waiting, fingers crossed,
Yes.
on hearing something something we can touch on Adani, because
Yes.
hata sitaki hiyo jina inatuudhi.
Thank you.
Maybe the people are good, whatever, but the name itself, we can't. But let me let you go. Before I let you go, something I always ask people on the show, what legacy are you looking into leaving behind?
Oh, the legacy I'm hoping to leave behind is what one of my sons, when they came during midterm, he is in Form 2, he told me, Dad, I'm proud of you. I said, what are you talking about? I'm not giving you money. He told me, my teachers in class talk to me differently these days. They tell me that you have told them who I am as your son. And of course, they expect me to behave better. Now, I asked him, you've been behaving badly. No, they told me that make sure you don't let your father down. So the feeling I have is that if I'm able to talk about this and something changes and somehow tomorrow any of my kids benefited out of this change, then I would have left my legacy. Yes, because my legacy is not to be rich, because money gets finished. My legacy is never to be rich, because if you are having cancer and you have 10 billion, it doesn't change much. My feeling is we can be more softer, more kinder to each other. I believe in hope, and I believe in positivity in human endeavor. I am frightened and terrified by the exclusivity and design to make certain people feel, or some people get so much wealth that for them to feel that they have achieved the best they could do. My point is, I don't think that you becoming wealthy and rich makes you leave any legacy. No. I think how I wish many of these people stealing all this public money could actually even just go to where they come from and build a lovely level 4 hospital and just leave it there.
Leave it there.
Yes.
Looking forward
Thank
to
you.
really having you on the show again.
Thank you.
2 books for our audience to read. What would you recommend?
There's a book which was written by somebody called Frantz Fanon. It's on the liberation of the African. No, how Europe underdeveloped Africa. It's an incredible book. And the second book I would recommend for somebody to read is Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. I felt that she had finally found herself. And that's the kind of space I'm in.
You found
myself.
yourself.
Yes.
Shukran sana.
Thank you so
really
much.
Appreciate you. Let me let you go. I won't extend this outro. So guys, I really hope we've learned a thing or two. Very important for you to do what we do on the comment section. Tell me what your take home is. And while you are at it, if you're watching this maybe from diaspora, why don't you use tap send to send money to your loved ones? And you use my promo code Lynn. You can be able to get bonus of the figures on your screen. But I love that we are having this conversation. Msi give up. I know it's easy when things start. Sasa, why are we even protected? Don't give up. You know, keep your head up. That's all I can say. Drop some Tupac there. Just keep your head up, guys, and don't give up. What we are trying to do here is very, very important for the generations to come. And as I've always said, if there's anything that you can't put on the comment section, why don't you email me info@lnn.digital. And also a huge shout out to my amazing team, including our producer Edwin, for being able to put this conversation together. I do not take you for granted. You do an amazing job. Remember, subscribe if you haven't. It goes a long way to making sure that our work is watched by many people. My name is Lynn Ngugi. I'm gonna see you either tomorrow at 10 a.m. or 7 p.m. Bye-bye.